Actress Halle Berry has been making a statement, and what she said was that her Oscar win is now worthless in her mind because since she won it in 2002, in her opinion, there has been a lack of diversity. At the time, it was quite a significant thing because she was the first black actress to receive the Academy Award for Best Actress. Um, So now basically she's saying it's worthless. At the time, it was widely publicized how emotive she was in her response to the win. So this got me thinking about the wider issue of identity politics and how pervasive it is in what I would call the celebrity class. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Halle Berry is a good actress. I've seen a few of her films. I think she's clearly a hardworking and good actress. But my view on this is if she feels so strongly about it, then she should send back her Academy Award. But simply complaining about it to me, frankly, seems ungrateful. Um, because in the end of the day, if you get something from an organization, yes, it's a recognition of your acting merit, at least it should be, um, and she earned it. But in every award ceremony, there's four people up for nomination. She won it. So my logic is, well, wait a second. You've been recognized for your acting achievements. You've made millions from your acting career. What are you complaining about? That is how I immediately read a situation like this. And her defenders will say, okay, well, she's not talking about herself, she's talking about wider diversity issues, which I believe is debatable anyway. I feel the whole Oscars so white thing was totally blown out of proportion. Um, because in that one given year, it happened to be an overwhelming dominance of white nominees, did not mean that there's never any ethnic minority representation. It's just not true. And it isn't just on race issues. You get certain actresses try to push a sexism issue. Oh, it's because I'm a woman. Um, let me get out the violin and the handkerchief whilst I get a crowdfunding appeal for these poor multimillionaire actresses who might be getting a few million less than their multimillionaire male co-stars. Um, that was an issue recently with Gal Gadot, the actress who is starring in the new Wonder Woman film, and feminists were pushing the misleading idea that she was getting paid a lot less than Henry Cavill, who starred in Superman. What they were negating to mention was that was his overall takings from, as I understand it, the sign up for the franchise rather than an individual film. But regardless, I take the view fundamentally if you are a multimillionaire, don't complain about hardship in life. I'm not saying they can't have an opinion. I'm just saying that the perception to the wider public is not going to go down very well, except for super fans who blindly will, support someone no matter what. Um, okay, so Halle Berry's talking about this issue of diversity. If the point is she's talking about acting, she's talking about the world of Hollywood, which is a parallel universe to the real world anyway. If she was spending her times in the slums of Detroit, if she was really genuinely showing sincerity with some of the things that are going on, then I would have more sympathy. Call me cynical, but I think it's just the latest example of identity politics because I think she wants to kind of show herself to be popular within the black community by bashing the white establishment, and yet this is someone who's greatly benefited from Hollywood. She has made millions from her films. So what's she complaining about? Put it this way, I would have more sympathy with her argument if she said something along these lines. I personally have been very fortunate. I've done well from this industry, but I know that it's a struggle for other people. Now, if that was her pitch, I would be more sympathetic. But her pitch is my award means nothing. Yet there's actors who bust their ass to get that award. That's why I think her attitude is wrong, because she is denigrating um, a prestigious award that many other actors and actresses really work very, very hard to get. It's like it's the biggest award within the acting industry. And there's actors all over the world from all backgrounds who will never imagine being in the position that she was in. What does she do? She denigrates it. It reminds me of, I know it's not exactly the same situation, but it's like when Mike Tyson was complaining about his heavyweight belts. They're all trash. Okay, Mike, give them to another champion, get rid of them. I think that sort of ingratitude I really have a problem with. It's not that I think people should, who have been fortunate in life, should never ever raise a voice. Quite the contrary. I think if you are in a position of privilege, then if anything, you've got a responsibility to speak out on social issues. But in the end of the day, she's an actress. She's not a politician. She's an actress, and I am a bit tired of actors and actresses thinking they're more important than they actually are. But on the wider issue of identity politics, I understand the origins of this. I understand that in the United States in particular, this came about during the civil rights movement, where you had particular demographic groupings that people started to amalgamate together. Sometimes that was absolutely necessary because of, for example, segregation. They had no other choice. So things like black universities, I totally understand why they were set up, because they had no other choice. Black people were prohibited from attending white establishments. And I don't need any lectures on the history of racism in the United States or other Western countries for that matter. So I totally, totally accept that. But I do argue the situation today is very different because the United States has passed very strict anti discrimination laws. So if someone is not given a job because they're black or because they're a woman, then the company is going to get fined. And it's the same in the UK. That's why I have little sympathy for identity politics today. Am I saying that there are no issues out there? No. Am I saying that things are perfect for black people, minority people, women? No. I am not saying that. What I am saying is that if you go through life, every time you have a setback, if your attitude is, oh, it's because I'm black, it's because I'm a woman, it's because I'm white, and there's certain white nationalist groups who have that mentality, I have no sympathy with you because, as far as I'm concerned, all you're doing is saying, I should get this because I am black, because I'm a woman, because I'm white. Meritocracy is being completely overshadowed by this cult of identity politics. And I think that's very unfortunate because what it actually ends up doing is denigrating the many, many achievements of African American people. It denigrates the artists, the sports people, the politicians, the political activists out there who do deserve recognition, but it ends up being, oh, because they're black, rather than because they happen to be a talented individual at what they do. That is the complete opposite of Martin Luther King's dream. What was it he said? I believe one day, or I dream one day that little black boys and little black girls will stand together as brothers and sisters. I know that's not an exact quote, but you get the drift. That was his message. So this identity politics culture is the exact opposite of what Martin Luther King was preaching. And in my opinion, all it does is create further divisiveness. I'm not suggesting society is perfect. I'm not suggesting that this situation regarding race relations or gender relations is absolutely perfect. But what I find utterly galling is people who will want to find sexism or racism or homophobia or any other form of discrimination in every single disappointment they have. So if a white man disagrees with them, oh, it must be because he's a racist. Give me a break. If a white man disagrees with him, it must be because he's a misogynist. He doesn't like a woman speaking her voice. If a straight person disagrees with you, oh, they're a homophobe. They don't like gay people to have a voice. Um, I just think this is a distraction. When people allege sexism, racism, homophobia, I want to see hard evidence because those are extremely inflammatory claims. They're claims that can utterly destroy someone. That's why there has to be solid evidence for it. And yes, there are situations where it clearly is the case. I would argue, for instance, in certain police brutality cases, I think there is a problem there. I think there are some situations where black people are targeted because they're black. I think there are some questions that need to be answered. But again, it doesn't show the whole picture. And the difficulty is this is so influential and so dominant within celebrity culture, but it's now starting to seep into wider society that anyone who voices dissent, anyone who has a different point of view, is immediately denounced as a right wing populist. What's ironic about this is that I've never seen myself as a right winger, and yet the more I think of just how absurd and divisive these sort of neo left ideas are, I admit that I find myself probably identifying more with the political right simply because it's the only voice that is countering this. Although there are genuinely progressive left wingers who recognize this as a problem, and with those people, I would have empathy. The way to give opportunity is not by shortlists, it's not by quotas, it's not by affirmative action. It's by creating the circumstances that people have more opportunity. It is by insisting that companies are colorblind and work solely on meritocracy. So, where there are allegations of a lack of opportunity, of course that has to be addressed. But I do think that because of identity politics, we're in a situation now where people are no longer seen as individuals. It's always about demographics. And I think the media has a lot to answer for. During election cycles, CNN in particular have an obsession with what do women think, what do black people think, what do white people think, what do gay people think, as if every single person in the demographic thinks the same way. That is utterly absurd. You get black conservatives, you get black liberals, you get white conservatives, you get white liberals, etc. So I think the media has a hell of a lot to answer for in terms of promoting this identity politics, which ultimately I find deeply, deeply divisive. I accept that people are different. Therefore, it's a bit naive to say, oh, well, everyone's the same and therefore there's an exactly the same pitch. Because clearly, issues that the black community in inner city Detroit or inner city London are facing will not be the same as middle aged white people in rural England. Or rural Ohio, So I appreciate that there is a different pitch, but I still think that identity politics does far more harm than good. And how do we counter this? We have to be honest. We have to recognize that society is not perfect, but the way to address any issues that are out there is firstly by producing hard evidence, not by throwing around inflammatory terms like racism, sexism. I'm so sick and tired of overprivileged actresses whinging, oh, it's about sexism because my 10 million salary is not 20 million. Give me a break. It just, these people need to get into the real world because there are many people struggling out there from all backgrounds. So, rich black celebrities trying to create further divisions between white people and black people does nothing to help black people, and it does nothing to help poor white people either. All it does is create further animosity. It's bullshit. They're entitled to their opinions, but they also have to realize they're not above criticism. Okay, I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts.